Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Nedling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Nedling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics or guests that will empower you to take your life or your business to the next level. Today, I am excited to have my guest, June Collins, on. And June has a very interesting background, so I want to share that with you, please. June is a master NLP practitioner and coach. In 2012, she lost her son, Caleb, and found herself hitting rock bottom and not understanding how to rebuild her life without Caleb in it. During this time, she found a passion with the mind and how individuals react to trauma. Through her own experience and education, she now helps other women rebuild and find purpose in their lives. June Collins wrote a book detailing her experiences with child loss and the demons she faced. She wrote, "Mama, you don't heal," to help other women to realize they are not alone and to help them begin their initial steps to rebuild their own life and purpose. Mama, You Don't Heal will be released. As this is being aired today, it is going to be released tomorrow, June 16th. For those of you listening to the replay, you can go and get that on Amazon or other resources. Go to June's website to get this book. Again, Mama, You Don't Heal. It's her 11th birthday after the loss of her son, Caleb. I chose for us to have the title or the theme, How to Change Your Career in Your 40s and Above, as I'm 65 and I have done this now 3 times.
Yeah.
So I understand how important it is. We will touch a good bit on the pain and the moving forward with loss, but we are also going to talk about what it is to decide to move forward after we turn 40 and older. Yeah. Please welcome June Collins. Hey, June.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
It is my pleasure. We're all praying for no bad weather right now so that we can keep this podcast moving. June is the time when the rains come, and when you're in Florida or Georgia, you just never know. So
yes,
those of you that might be listening to this podcast in the winter, well, now you know what it's like here in June.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Nothing but rain and hurricanes, which is fine. I'm good with that. But it's you just never know.
You just never know. They pop up all the time, for sure. We always start with a simple question. I did give a clue that you're in Florida, but what part of Florida are you in?
Oh, I'm close to Florida. I'm originally from Pompano Beach, Florida,
Right.
and down in Broward County. And then now we've actually moved to a small town of about 5,000 people. It's called Howard, Georgia. And it's really close to Valdosta. So we're like dead center in the middle of the state, all the way down towards the bottom.
Yes.
So we're 30 minutes away from the Florida line now. So you can basically say we're living there.
Yeah, you get all the humidity for sure.
Yes, and
the no-see-ums, right? Those little bugs, gnats.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right. So let's just give a little bit of your backstory. Tell everybody, just how you got to where you are today.
Okay. So when I was young, well, I'll go back when I was trying to fix and try to figure out what I wanted to do in life, I had no clue. I was one of those people that when I got out of high school, didn't know if I wanted to go to college, didn't know if I wanted to work. So I'll preface it for that. I had no clue. And just the opportunity to to get into law enforcement happened. And so I became a police officer um, several years after I got out of
Wow.
school. So I started doing that and I like it and stuff like that. It was all right. And then so fast forward, I was doing that. I was enjoying it. And then I decided to start having a family. I had my husband and I had a son and he was actually special needs. And I had a complete placental abruption when he was born. And so he had a lot of special needs going on with that. And then once I had him, I was still working in law enforcement, and it was just a different atmosphere. It
Yeah.
was what he needed, and so we went along with that for a really long time. My husband at the time was he was in the military at the time. He's since gotten out of the military, but my ex-husband was in the military, so we kind of basically just took shifts with Caleb, and that was
Yeah.
our life, and we took his medicine, and he had several different issues. So we lived like that. And then in it was March 20th of 2012, um, I woke up to my ex-husband screaming, and I ran downstairs halfway, and I was like, "What's going on? Or is everything okay?" And he said, "No, Caleb's not breathing." So I went to here in our county, and I'm not sure if it's in everybody's county, but if you dial 911 and don't talk, the police still come.
Yes.
So I dialed 911, threw down the phone, and I went to his room and I started CPR on Caleb. And after that, I started CPR on Caleb, and then they took him. The ambulance finally got here because we live in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
The ambulance got here. They went to take him to the hospital, and he ended up passing away. Um, he never regained consciousness, never started breathing again on his own. And that was in March of 2012.
Mm.
So after that happened, obviously it changes any kind of trauma. I'll say this, any trauma that you have in general, it changes you and your morals, your values, your beliefs, everything changes. And I felt like at the time, and I was 31 when he died, I felt like I needed to do more and be more. That my life, I didn't like what my life was. I wanted to be more and do more, but I was going through all this grief and I was fighting the
Yeah.
demons, demons from, the child loss, having to deal with that, and then just demons of who I was as a person that I did not like.
Yeah.
And so, it started to change me, and like everything started to change, and I was like, this just doesn't fit who I am now.
Mm.
And so that's what started my mind thinking, as I'm dealing with the grief, and trying to deal with it and figure out what's the best way to deal with it.
Right.
I also was thinking, this law enforcement just isn't for me anymore.
Mm.
It's not what it once was for me. So when I started dealing with my own grief, and then after I started dealing with my own grief, it was, oh wow, that person lost a child. Let me talk to them. Oh wow, that person lost a child. Let me talk to
Mm.
them. And it went on like that for a really, really long time. And I remember it's been it's been a little while back. I started a Facebook group, and I was like, I wonder if anybody would even be interested in just a group of women learning how to deal with child
Yeah.
loss.
Mm-hmm.
And are they having the same problems? Because the women that I'm talking to, they seem to be having the same problems that
Yeah.
I've already dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started that Facebook group, and it kind of took off. And so from there on, that's when I decided, you know what, maybe this is my purpose, because it felt right. And it felt, no matter how much time and how tired I was, doing law enforcement and doing the group, doing the monthly questions, doing, coaching, it felt good. It wasn't like I consider it wasn't like a job.
Right.
And I really enjoyed it. And that's where I kind of shifted, because like to me it seems like when I did law enforcement, like it was I didn't feel like it was a purpose. It was something
Mm.
that I did that I enjoyed doing, but it didn't have deep meaning to me, where this feels like a purpose. Helping other women with their child loss feels like a purpose.
Yeah.
And obviously the group started, and then the monthly questions, and then just different things started popping off. And then I thought, you know what, let me write a book. Maybe I can reach more people writing a book.
Mm.
And so I later I was in 11 years in my child loss, and I wrote a book, which was the perfect time, because I don't think it would have been as honest and raw if it would have been back then, because I
Yeah.
was so jaded by, I had all these anger issues, and there was just so
Hmm.
much going on with me then, that it just wouldn't have been a great time. But that's kind of where I got started, where it started to shift for me, and it was because of the trauma I experienced.
Oh, wow. So I think you kind of started to talk about this, but in that Facebook group that you started, um, were you guiding people to how to rebuild their lives? I mean, were you getting people that were responding to what you're putting out there in Facebook to be able to say, okay, what is the next step? This is day one of the loss. What do I do today? Where,
Yeah. So when I started the group, I never did the Facebook groups at first until I started. I was like, well, let me start this group and see if anybody's interested. So a lot of these groups that are out there, people can post about their trauma, their loss. But I was finding that it's great to talk about your loss, and it's great to post about it, but there was a lot of, I'll never get over this. I can't do this. And the mindset was so bad in some of these groups. And like the new women coming in, that
yeah,
we're seeing, this lady is like 10 years in, and she didn't get over it. I'm not going to get over it. And they were changing
right.
their mindset. So what I decided when I started this group, I wanted to give them an open space in private to talk about what their deep feelings are, what they felt was holding them back, or what they felt is their problem. But I wanted them to use it in more of a positive way, instead
Right.
of being like, I'll never get over this.
Mm,
I wanted a group where it was like, this is really hurting me, and I'm going to try to get to do, one step closer to finding what my happy place is, what my peace is, because it's different for everybody.
hmm.
And so I started posting, like, I'll post like quotes and stuff. I'll post positive quotes. I'll post quotes about child loss, but the ones that I do post are usually more positive in nature. Um, about rebuilding your life and how strong you are when you do lose a child. And then sometimes it'll be posts about my story,
Hmm.
or it'll be asking questions, or it like I do a lot of stuff about guilt and anxiety, just because a lot
Right.
of people have both of those. So I'll post different ways for them to be able to handle it, like different things
Hmm.
that they can try. Because that's one thing that I did find, is that something that works for me might not work for somebody else. And I can give you a perfect example, because I'm an introvert. I'm an introvert at heart. So for me, group counseling is not ideal for me, because
Right.
I'm more worried about everybody in the room and people being there
Hmm.
versus taking everything in. So for me, that doesn't work. But for me, getting online, because I'm very analytical and reading about your mindset and the way your mind, thinking one thing can change your mind to do another. That's what helped me. But it might not help someone else that's like, I don't want to read all that stuff. But I
Yeah.
can give them tips, and
Yeah.
help.
Give
And
me the cliff notes, right?
yeah, give me the cliff notes that I can understand.
Hmm.
And that's the way that I run that group. And if there's a negative thought, a lot of times the women that are in that group will encourage them to not think the way, not to
Hmm.
be the negative, to be more positive. And hey, maybe try this might help you. And then starting the 23rd of June, the program that because I was doing like a group program, and which it works good, but I needed more one-on-one with people.
Right.
So that group program is each week you'll get a different video on that group program that I was teaching people. And then that way they can ask questions in the group too, like, hey, you said this, but what about this? And
Mm-hmm.
it's just a way to give everybody all the information that they could possibly need to help them start making those baby steps and let them know that they're not alone in doing it.
Yeah. It opens the door for conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So as a person's going through trauma, whether it be child loss or any type of trauma, and you're thinking about, okay, I mean, sometimes turning 40 is trauma for people.
Yeah.
And I know for myself, when I first met my husband, he had lost his dad when he was in high school, sophomore in
Oh,
high
wow.
school, and his
Mhm.
dad was only 47. And it is interesting that whenever I celebrated or tried to celebrate his 30th birthday, it was a terrible traumatic thing, and he didn't want to he didn't want to celebrate. And then what I realized was every year he got closer to 47, he thought that that was
Scared.
going to be the end,
Mhm.
And then after he turned 47, he was okay, cool. But it's really how our minds really play tricks on us.
Mhm.
And so as you're trying to figure out what that next step is, I imagine there's a good deal of fear
Mhm.
as to, if you should even try anything. So as you talk to the women in this group, what kind of discussions do you have in relation to that fear of the unknown? And I guess sometimes, can you do this? I mean, that
Mhm.
really feeling that you can't do something different. There's got to be some kind of discovery that has to take place as you have these conversations.
Yes, so fear is a big thing. A lot of things in life, fear will stop you. That is what stops people, I would say 95% of the time. And it's not a bad thing. Fear is put into us by our mind to kind of cushion us, to kind of help us not to
Mm,
get hurt, not
yeah.
to do a whole bunch of different things. So fear is it's natural. Everybody has it, but it's the people that actually push past the fear that
Hmm.
make it. I say make it. And when I'm talking to these women and when I'm talking to anybody that's experienced trauma, is you have to push past that fear. That fear is there for a reason, and it's there for to, not for us to get hurt, hurt physically or emotionally. It's there. It's always there. But you have to push past it. And I
Right.
try to make them realize, it's normal to fear this stuff, but you have to push past it.
Hmm.
And I always tell them, you don't have to, if you try something and you don't like it, you can always not do it again,
Yeah.
but at least you tried. And
Hmm.
and trying is pushing past that fear. Whether
Right.
you like it or not, trying is pushing past that fear. And that's what you want to do with, the next step or changing careers is you're like, okay, well, let me try this, just like I did. Let me try this group and see if people will like it. You don't have to go, I call it shiny object syndrome. You don't have to go from I want to change my career and now this shiny object, I'm like this person, because it never happens like that anyway.
Hmm.
There's always those baby steps in between. So don't go here. Let's take it step by step. Start a group, see if anybody's interested, or I don't talk to people to see if they would be interested in whatever you're wanting
Yeah,
to do, if you're
for sure.
selling a product or if you're coaching or whatever you're doing. um, and take it smaller steps and smaller bits and steps, but take a step and push past that fear, because once you do it more and more and more, that fear of changing your career or doing something else, whatever it is, or starting something, inventing something, whatever you just
Hmm.
writing a book, whatever it is, if you start taking steps, that fear is going to get littler and littler and littler. It'll
Hmm.
go, it's never going to go away because it's built in us. It's
Yeah, for
automatic. It's
sure.
always in us.
And sometimes fear is good. I mean, every time I go to speak, there's that fear, but that actually brings energy to
Yes.
what I do. So that's a
Mhm.
good thing. Whenever you're going through this trauma, like for you, you had a spouse at that time. So for those that have another party, you know, spouse, other children, there's the trauma isn't yours alone.
Mhm.
How does that impact relationships? How do you talk to your husband, your wives, your children to keep them assured that it's going to be okay, or that you're working through this? I mean, there has to be some kind of dialogue, I think, to keep things healthy. And you know, I guess in your case, it didn't work.
Mhm.
But you know, so let's just talk about that for a little bit, about how, you know, we worry about our own mindset, but we have all these people feeding us
Mhm.
that cause us to have other doubts and maybe enhance our trauma.
Yeah. So whenever you have that trauma or you have that loss, like me, I had my child loss, you have your trauma, you have your spouse's trauma, and you have your other kid's trauma. And being that mom, obviously we want to fix everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we do. We fix everything.
Mm-hmm.
And to talk about, as in, obviously my husband at the time and I got divorced. I tell him there's two types of people, two types of spouses. We'll go with spouses first. There's two types of spouses. There's the spouses that before your child loss, it was a rocky relationship, and then you have the spouses that were already had a really good relationship. One or the other is going, I believe, is going to determine your child loss. If you guys decide that, you know, you're going to make it, then you guys are going to make it. For myself, when we went into the child loss, we were already in a rocky situation. And when the child loss happened, it put more of a strain on us. And we both weren't, I think he was probably more than me, but
Mm-hmm.
weren't willing to work hard to stay together. So we
Right.
divorced.
Mm-hmm.
But I know other women that I work with and are in my groups, they have um, I've never seen relationships like it. They're just, it's so special, the relationship they had. Now, they had a great relationship at first, or they agreed to work on it, but they grew together with their
Mm-hmm.
child loss. And I mean, there is nothing that can stop them. And I know a lot of them to this day. And it's amazing. And they're all very close, and their kids are very close. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just amazing. It's amazing to see how child loss grew them closer together, even though you thought they already had a great relationship.
Right.
Um, so I think it just depends on your spouses for that. Obviously, whenever you do go through loss, a woman is going to show grief differently than a man's going to show, and you guys have to have that understanding as well. But it is doable. It is doable to stay together.
Mm-hmm.
As for children, um, they grieve too, because they obviously they lost a sibling, they lost their forever best friend, they lost their playmate.
Mm-hmm.
And I you can see different things with kids. Like, I have a daughter now, but she wasn't around with Caleb. She, you know, she was born after Caleb, but she still mourns Caleb because
Mm-hmm.
it's the brother that she'll never have. You know,
Mm-hmm.
she knows she has a brother, but he's not here with her. So I see it from Bella all the time. You know, she'll mention it, you know, I miss Caleb and stuff. And it's kind of like, okay, you know, and we talk about it and everything, and we move on from it. But you also have the families that have other children. And
Mm-hmm.
so the mom is trying to go through her trauma, and she wants to be there for her children. Um, I tell a lot of the people that I work with, set up times to have like family group meetings, you
Mm-hmm.
know, like 30 minutes. This is the set, and I say a safe space, but just because that's what everybody says now. But this is the time to talk about it. And then that just sets up a time where people know I can talk about it. and we can talk openly about it, because a lot of times with your spouse and your children, they don't want to talk about it because they don't want to upset you. You
Mm-hmm.
know, everybody doesn't want to upset each other, so they don't talk about it. So setting up those times gives that open door for everybody to talk about the loss and what they're feeling. With children, sometimes you'll see them acting out.
Mm-hmm.
That could happen. And then sometimes you will see with children, when they're going through a sibling loss, they will
Mm-hmm.
try to mimic that sibling that passed. And the
Oh,
reason why they're trying to do that, and psychologically in their mind, they're thinking, okay, well, mommy and daddy are sad, but if I act more like that sibling,
oh,
it's going to fix things. And that's
yeah,
just a child's mind of thinking to that. And I always tell mamas, you need to sit down with your child and tell them, I love you. This is a sad moment in our life, but I love you for you, and you're perfect the way you are.
yeah,
And because that's the worst fear of anything, is losing another child. God forbid us lose another child, and God forbid if they're older, lose them to drunk driving or
yeah,
suicide or overdose. I mean, we don't want to push them to that, and it could happen. I mean,
mm-hmm.
it's you could think that that could happen.
Yeah,
So, it's just making them realize, I don't want you to be that person. I want you to be you.
right.
And that's just a few things that I talk about with them, and how different everybody grieves.
So it is zoomed by. We could probably talk for hours and hours. Uh, I'm going to go and give you the rapid fire, just a couple.
Sure.
So we talked about, that next thing and figuring out what the next thing is, and sometimes that's challenging. How do you change your passion into making profit?
Yeah. I think once you find your purpose, once you find your purpose, and I tell women all the time, when you look at your life, what's the one thing you like doing the most? And if it's talking to women, if it's doing podcasts or whatever it's doing, if you do that, and you just every moment you have, you're starting to think about it, that's your purpose.
Yeah.
And if you are meant to do something and it's your purpose, if you work towards it, it's going to happen. And
Mm,
you just keep going and going and going, because once you stop, then there's no way you're going to succeed. So even if you start to succeed in making profit, keep going, because there's always a little bit more you can do. So I would say just keep going.
What I found too, whenever I was going through what's next kind of thing, then those opportunities came about. I found that volunteering helped actually to
Hmm.
open doors because it wasn't a commitment. It exposed you to different things that you
Hmm.
maybe never even thought that you loved
Yeah.
until you did it. So
Hmm.
I would suggest trying to volunteer at different places. So, how do you create buy-in in your business?
I think especially for what I do is being raw. Not I don't hold anything back. I mean, there's no reason for me to help people. I give them for me, I give them the raw me, and stuff. I mean, I don't tell them everything like in my life that's going on, that's happened, but with my child loss, I'm very raw with it, and I'm like, no, you're actually going to feel this. No, you're
Mhm.
actually going to feel this, and I'm very honest with them about it.
Yeah.
And that, I think that works for me, because there's no reason for me to hide. If I really want to help somebody and help them move forward, not holding back something is not going to
Yeah.
help.
Yeah.
So I think that works really well with me, because of the fact that I'm so raw, I'm so open. I don't hold anything back. If they have any questions, I'll give them a legit answer to,
Hmm.
this is exactly how you're going to feel, or this is exactly how I'm going to feel. And I don't
Yeah.
hide all those things that, some things you hide from the world and you don't want to tell it, but I'm just like, nope, I'm going to tell it,
Yeah.
and it helps those people too that are like, well, I'm not going to tell that. When I say something, like one of the big things I talk about is, well, two things. One, after Caleb died, I talk about, I had the thought of, well, at least he's not suffering anymore.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, how can you say that about your child? But Caleb had a lot of issues.
Yeah.
But for me to move forward, that was something that I thought about. He's
Mhm.
not suffering. For me, he's with God,
Yeah.
And then another thing is like I talk about how reckless I was when I first lost my child. And, remember I was on a drug task force at the time in law enforcement, and we're doing all this high risk stuff, and I just didn't care.
Yeah.
If I pass away, it's okay because I'm going to be with Caleb. And I talk
Mm.
about that a lot. And those are two things that I know that people don't want to talk about.
Yeah.
They hide that from the world, and it's okay, and I tell them, these things are okay to think, it's
Mhm.
just a thought. It's just changing where you're going.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
yeah, I think just being really raw and just being honest. I
Mhm.
mean, there's no
Yeah.
reason to hide anything.
You and I had talked about the fact that I had lost two children, and the no the people around you never wanted to bring up like that I had a miscarriage 2 times.
Mhm. Yeah.
And for me, I just kept on thinking the way I felt I needed to share with other people so
Hmm.
that they one would know I was okay talking about it. But I just thought if I could help anybody to
Hmm.
not have all of the pain that I felt in each of those times, that would
Yeah.
be great. And
Hmm.
it is interesting. Those that we love the most are sometimes the most afraid to talk to us about the pain that we suffered.
Yeah, I think I think for a lot of people too, number one, it's out of the normal life cycle, so they don't understand. And for some reason, well, if we don't talk about it, it's not going to bring it up, and they don't realize we always think about it.
Yeah.
We're always thinking about,
Yeah.
like for me, I think about what Caleb would be today. He would
Yeah.
be a teenager today.
Yeah.
What would he be doing? And like for you with your miscarriages, what would those children be doing right now?
Yeah. I always
What
think
would
that they
they
were two
be?
boys. I have two
Yeah.
girls. I always think they were both boys. But
You know,
now I have two grandboys, and so
mhm.
God gave me that.
Yeah. But it's just I think that's what a fear that they don't want to upset you, but I think people have this notion that like especially people that have lost children. And I think we talked about this too, like statistically speaking, they say like if you go look at the statistics for parents that lose children, it's like 24 weeks all the way up. I think it's 25. And those are the only people. They have this little short part that they say, okay, if you're a parent and you lose a child, we're going to do a statistic on you. But you have people before 24 weeks that lose children. You have
Yeah.
people that are over the age of 25, 26, that's parents are dealing with their loss.
Yeah.
And I think everybody it's kind of like taboo. Like nobody wants to talk about it because they're scared they're going to upset somebody or say
Hmm.
something wrong. But it's just so normal. You start to learn how many people have actually lost a child,
Yeah.
whether it was miscarriage young or they were older when they lost their
Hmm.
children.
Yeah.
But no one
Yeah.
wants to talk about it. And it's so natural and it happens so often.
Right. And it's there's a lot of people. I have a very good friend whose brother died at 40 something, 40-ish,
Hmm.
and he had a massive heart attack, and it was
Hmm.
unexpected. And she has grieved
Hmm.
probably 20 years now,
Yeah.
and it's just hurts your heart.
Hmm.
But there are people that need, I guess, people like you.
Yeah. I think for women that lose children, I don't think you ever heal. I don't believe in the word heal. I think we all learn how to deal with it. And we deal with it either in a positive light or a negative light. And we got to change the negative way we heal because so basically the last memory you have of a person is usually the last interaction.
Yeah.
And I think we talked about this as well. So what's the last interaction that these moms
Hmm.
or other people have had is that death, and you got to change that, and you got to change it to a positive. And I
Right.
think that is so important too, because we have to learn. I'm never going to get over um, what the incident that happened. I'm not going to be okay with him passing away, but I can be okay with keep honoring his memory. And
Yeah.
I can be okay with remembering and
Hmm.
talking about him when I want to,
Right.
and I talk about him a lot, and he plays a big role in my life still. But I think that that's a big thing as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
Well, for those of you that want to be able to get in touch with June, we have a slide that you can see contact information. So let me share my screen. If you're just listening to this, you can go ahead and take down the website information. It will be on my YouTube channel as well as my website, but it is theserenitydreamer.com. Again, theserenitydreamer.com. She's on Facebook at The Serenity Dreamer and Instagram, Life After Child. I'm going to let June talk to you a little bit about what you can find through her various services, as well as when you go to that website. So June, tell them your call to action.
Yeah, so if you go to that website, you can either actually go to the Serenity Dreamer or Life After Child, because Life After Child is my coaching program. You can either go to either one of those. You can, when you get on the website, it will tell you everything that I actually do. There's a tab, different tabs on there. So you can go there and kind of see what all I do. If my book's on there, you can check out my coaching and see what my coaching is all about. I also sell some merchandise on there, and I later on I will be starting like a podcast for like one specific positive thing or step that you can do each week. To basically move forward in your life. And it's for everybody. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
well, women, I will say it's for women.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it could help men too, but I'll be starting that as well. But, and then, so you can find out all about that. You can actually connect to any of my pages from the website. But if you have actually lost a child and you want to get into my private group, that is at the bottom, where it's women surviving child loss.
Yeah.
And you just have to answer some questions to get in. If you don't answer the questions, I try to look and see if I can tell if you've lost a child. So I just want to make sure that it's just for, women who have lost a child. But
Yeah.
other than that, that's where all my free resources are. And you can just, you can be as active, or just sit back and listen to everybody until you feel comfortable. It's kind of go at your own pace. We also, through that group, we also have like monthly Q&A. So if you
Okay.
send me the questions, we answer them once a month. It's either Zoom, or you can be in the group live. I do like a Facebook Live in there. Don't have to be dressed up, don't have to be anything but yourself. You don't have to turn your screen on, just sit there and listen.
Yeah.
And just to help you. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to ask them during, obviously when we're in the middle of the questions and answers. But that's kind of a little bit where we're going, or where I am right now and where I'm going in the future.
Well, June, it has been just wonderful. And as I said, we could talk for a lot longer. We'll probably have
Mhm.
to have you back after your book launch and your
Yeah.
podcast so that we can talk about how that went, that experience, and talk a little bit more about how women can start over with a new career after 40s.
Yeah. Yeah.
As always, I remind everyone that life is a journey, no matter what age you are. Life is a
Yeah.
journey.
It
It's up to
is.
you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Nettling signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Nettling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.